The Demon Hunter class rework in the previous season brought Havoc gameplay to a completely different level. The spec may look simple on the surface, but has a lot of small details and calls for a very precise gameplay to perform at the high end. In this video, I will show you the 5 skills you need to master as a Havoc DH to push the limits of your DPS above and beyond in Dragonflight Season 4. Towards the end of the video, I will be sharing an additional bonus tip that will help you take your gameplay to the next level. This bonus tip might just be the most important one, so make sure you stick around. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Felfire Gaze channel. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe, and let's get into the video. Number 1. Understand your damage breakdown. The first step to maximize your DPS is to understand where our damage comes from. We will use one of my personal logs as an example. I have chosen Volkoros, which is basically a target dummy with a pure single target DPS profile. I have compiled the original data into an easy to read format. To the right, you see all the damage that we cannot control, like random trinket procs and auto attacks, which account for 25% of our overall damage. To the left, you see the damage that comes from our actual abilities, with Blade Dance, Chaos Strike and Throw Glaive being the most dominant ones, while the Hand is a close fourth. This is crucial to understand. The biggest portion of our DPS comes from these 4 spells, and the rest of our toolkit helps us cast as many of them as possible and buff them with as many modifiers as possible to do huge damage. In this skill, I was running the inertia build with Essence Break that you will use for most raid bosses in Season 4. If you are able to master this build, any other small variation with Glaive Tempest or Rage Fire will be super easy for you. Most of Havoc DH damage happens during small burst windows with I-Beam and Metamorphosis, where all modifiers are stacked on top of one another. If you don't know how to execute them perfectly, your damage will suffer. We will cover all different burst combos later on in this video, but for now, let's understand the flow of our gameplay, which is a pattern that repeats itself every 2 minutes. We start with all cooldowns on pull, doing massive damage, and then we have 2 additional smaller bursts with I-Beam and Essence Break after 40 seconds and after 80 seconds. Between our I-Beams, we use Vengeful Retreat every 20 seconds to get initiative. After 2 minutes, everything lines up again and the cycle begins anew. The only exception is the Hand, which has the RNG cooldown reduction from our current tier set and can come off cooldown at various times, on average every 45 to 50 seconds. Doing maximum DPS requires you to get the most out of your burst windows and use the time in between to plan and prepare for them, which leads us right to the next skill that you need to master. Number 2. Strategically spend inertia charges. The combination of Unbound Chaos, Inertia and the Far Inside talents allows us to regularly boost our damage by 18% for 5 seconds whenever we use a charge of Immolation Aura. We have plenty of these, but not too many, unless we get extremely lucky. This means that we have to use them strategically to get the most out of them. And when we eventually get those extremely lucky procs, we still have to adapt to the situation and abuse them to make our burst combos explode and do massive damage. Going back to the Havoc DPS pattern, you should save at least 1 charge of Immolation Aura for every Metamorphosis and I-Beam burst. And if you get the Far Inside proc before your burst window, you need to be quick on your feet and adapt your burst combo accordingly, as I will show you later. By following this strategy, you will be left with a few Immolation Aura charges to spend. Ideally, you will use them to buff the Hand or any other DPS trinkets like Manic Grief Torch whenever they come off cooldown. At the very minimum, you should cast 1 Blade Dance during each inertia window. During Metamorphosis, spend all your procs aggressively, making sure that you cast a Death Sweep with each proc. The key to success is to use the time between your burst windows to strategize, check the cooldowns of your abilities, plan your next burst combos and be ready to adapt to any extra procs. Needless to say, you never want to sit on 2 Immolation Aura charges. Mastering this skill takes some time, but the reward is extremely satisfying. If you enjoy the content and you wanna see more, please show some appreciation. Quickly pause, like the video and subscribe to the channel. I will be making a ton of videos for the rest of Dragonflight and even more in the War Within. Number 3. Optimize your resource management. Up until now, we discussed how to stack modifiers and make your abilities hit as hard as possible. Now, we need to also make sure that you are able to cast as many of them as possible. Essentially, this boils down to 2 things: casting Throw Glaive and Blade Dance on cooldown, and managing Fury so that you can endlessly spam Chaos Strike between your other abilities. These 2 things might sound obvious, but I've seen so many players neglect them, so I decided to include them in this video. Blade Dance also casts Throw Glaive, thanks to our 2-set bonus. However, Blade Dance cooldown is slightly higher than Throw Glaive, which means that eventually you will have to manually cast Throw Glaive every now and then. Moreover, if you are out of melee range due to some mechanic, make sure to cast Throw Glaive to keep at least one charge on cooldown. Similarly, you should not delay Blade Dance. If you have an Essence Break combo coming off cooldown shortly, keep Blade Dance on cooldown and time I-beam properly so that Death Sweep comes off cooldown during your Essence Break window. Following all these tips will allow you to cast way more Blade Dance and Throw Glaives during each fight. When it comes to Fury management, you need to understand all different Fury sources and know how to prioritize them. Demon Blades and Chaos Strike procs are passive and completely outside your control. You just have to play around them. Then, there are 4 active Fury generators that you have to manage properly. Finally, the souls generated by Demonic Appetite are a semi-active generator. Although they spawn randomly from spamming Chaos Strike, you can delay collecting them and save them for later by not moving, giving you a little bit of control over them. The first Fury generator to cast is always Vengeful Retreat. If fight mechanics allow for it, this ability should be cast on cooldown in order to always be in sync with Essence Break for your burst combos. In a similar fashion, Immolation Aura is both a Fury generator and a burst activator. You should always cast it when needed to give you inertia for your burst combos, and plan your other Fury generators accordingly. The next priority is using your other active generators. Sigil of Flame is cast before Fellblade as it does way more damage. You want to get these abilities on cooldown as fast as possible, but do not use them if you are going to waste the Fury they generate. Souls are the last resort of Fury and you should not move to collect them unless everything else is on cooldown. However, if you have to move to execute your burst combos or to avoid fight mechanics, then you will naturally collect the souls and you have to lower the priority of Sigil of Flame and Fellblade until your Fury is low enough. Always remember that movement is the most important thing. If you need to use Vengeful Retreat or Fellblade to avoid the mechanic or to get into melee range, forget about the Fury management and prioritize optimal movement. This takes us directly to the next skill in our list. Number 4. Integrate your movement. Movement is an extremely important part of Havoc gameplay and it's what makes us unique. I could make an entire video about the different styles pro players are using to optimize their movement, and I probably will if this is something that you would like to see. At this stage, we will focus on how to smoothly integrate our movement abilities into the damage rotation. You see, Fell Rush and Vengeful Retreat are the activators of inertia and initiative respectively, so they are essential to unlock the full potential of our burst combos. One important aspect of our movement abilities is that they operate on a different global cooldowns than the rest of our spells. Fell Rush and Fellblade are half globals, meaning that you can cast one of them and almost immediately cast a different spell right after. Vengeful Retreat is completely off global cooldown, which lets you cast it simultaneously with a different spell like Essence Break. However, there is a small internal cooldown shared between Fell Rush and Vengeful Retreat, preventing you from casting 2 of them back to back with no delay. The nature of these spells calls for a unique playstyle where you are weaving them into your rotation, constantly alternating between a normal ability and a movement ability. This will become crystal clear once we analyze the different burst combos. For now, the key point is that you should never cast 2 movement abilities back to back, unless you have to do so to get back in melee range. Number 5. Perfect your burst combos. As already explained, Havoc Demon Hunters do all of their damage in small burst combos. If you don't know how to execute them perfectly, your damage will suffer. In these small windows, you want to line up all your modifiers to do huge burst damage. This includes Demon Form, Inertia, Initiative, Essence Break, and any DPS trinket you might be using. There are 2 different types of combos, burst with Metamorphosis and burst with I-beam. We will start with the first one. At the beginning of a pool, where you have all cooldowns available, you can do the Metamorphosis opener with double inertia. You open with Sigil of Flame, Immolation Aura, and the Hunt to get your dots rolling. Then cast Fell Rush, Immolation Aura, Fell Rush to get 10 seconds of inertia. Finally, you pop your DPS trinket and do your burst with I-beam into Vengeful Retreat, Essence Break, Death Sweep, Metamorphosis, Death Sweep into a second I-beam. Let's now see this burst combo in action.
Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
Later in the fight, when Metamorphosis comes back off cooldown, you probably will not have the hand ready at the same time, and you will only have 1 charge of Immolation Aura, so you do a slightly different combo. You start with Immolation Aura into I-beam, pop your DPS trinket, Fell Rush, Essence Break, Vengeful Retreat, Death Sweep, Metamorphosis, Death Sweep, and finally a second I-beam. If you get an Immolation Aura proc, you follow the sequence of the previous combo, where you do double Fell Rush for 10 seconds inertia and then proceed with the burst combo. We now move on to the I-beam combos. This changes a little bit depending on whether you get an emulation or a proc and whether you are doing a single target or AoE. If you get an emulation or a proc, you do the following sequence in both AoE and single target. Emulation aura, Fell Rush, emulation aura, Fell Rush to get 10 seconds inertia. Then you wanna cast I-beam into Vengeful Retreat, Essence Break, Death Sweep, Annihilation, Annihilation. If you only have one charge of emulation aura and you are doing single target, then the combo changes slightly. You wanna do Immolation Aura, Vengeful Retreat, I-beam into Fell Rush, Essence Break, Death Sweep, Annihilation, Annihilation. If you only have one charge of Immolation Aura and you are doing AoE, you do a slightly different combo. You wanna do Immolation Aura, Fell Rush, I-beam into Vengeful Retreat, Essence Break, Death Sweep, Annihilation, Annihilation. Finally, when you use the hand, you want to cast Immolation Aura, Fell Rush, and then Blade Dance and the hand within your inertia window. These two abilities can be cast in any order, but keep in mind that Blade Dance reduces the cooldown of the hand, and you want to always take advantage of that. As I promised at the beginning of the video, there is a bonus tip for those that stayed till the end. This may sound a bit controversial, and for some, perhaps it's the last thing that you wanna hear, but we all know it's true. Succeeding in PvE, and especially in Mythic Plus, requires way more than doing optimal damage. You need to know how to survive, control mobs, and assist your teammates with everything you have, while still doing maximum damage. And there is only one place where you can learn these skills and get them to the next level. Player versus player. Playing PvP is the most complex game mode of World of Warcraft and pushes you to perfect your skills in all aspects of the game through the oldest method in the book, human competition. Learning how to PvP will give you an insane awareness that you can carry over to PvE and skyrocket your gameplay. If you want to learn how to thrive in PvP as a Havoc Demon Hunter, check out my full PvP guide on screen. If you are on mobile and YouTube does not display the video, you can find the link in the description. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.